This is my 100% honest review of arguably the biggest update in Brawl Stars history. Now, I wanted to get this video out as soon as I possibly could. And you were looking at this and you're like, Kairos, it's like 3 weeks after the update. Okay, not that long, but you get the idea. It's been a long time. I had to rerun a bunch of numbers to see exactly how the progression system compared to the old one. Is it better? And if so, in what ways is it better? Is it worse? And in what ways is it worse? How is the community responding? And what are my thoughts on this update? There was way more to consider than any other update in the past. Like, we're talking about a complete removal of boxes, and that, like, even the Power 11 and Gear update that I had very strong feelings about did not require so much consideration as this update, right? So it's taken some time. I finally have all of my thoughts all figured out, and you guys know how this works. My goal is to be 100% honest with my personal thoughts, even if that means disagreeing with Supercell, and even if that means disagreeing with some of you guys that are watching this video. We got a lot to talk about, and then finally, I will rank this update on a scale from 1 to 10. Before we continue, I wanted to give a big thank you to T3 Arena for sponsoring this video. T3 Arena is a 3v3 third-person shooter game for mobile, and it is really starting to take off. Every now and then, a sponsor comes to me and I just fall in love with their game. This is a must-try in my opinion, so click that link below to download now. T3 Arena has over 20 different heroes to choose from that all have their own unique weapons and abilities, and each hero has an ultimate ability that charges up every time they deal damage. With 7 different game modes on 19 different maps, some heroes work better than others depending on situations, and like the strategies they're just endless. Plus, Season 4 of T3 Arena is starting on December 22nd, and there's no better time to jump into the game than the start of a brand new season. There's tons of events and free loot to claim, as well as 2 brand new heroes coming to the game, Kelvin and Vincent. Kelvin is a tank with an ice blaster that can create giant snowballs that he can use to deal damage to enemies, and Vincent is an assassin who uses a small pistol from a distance, then switches to a cane sword at close range, which deals insane damage. Plus, he can also disguise himself to look exactly like one of his opponents, which is just downright hilarious. And if all that isn't enough to get you excited about the game, T3 Arena has a one-of-a-kind handmade Christmas sweater that I'm giving away. There's only one sweater in the entire world with this design on it, and I'm wearing it right now, as you can see. It's like 400 bucks, and it's like actually ridiculously comfy. I love it. So click that link in the description below and download the game, and you'll also find directions on how to enter this sweater giveaway in the description as well. Once again, a huge thank you to T3 Arena for sponsoring this video. I hope you guys enjoy playing it. We're gonna start this off with a very strong opinion right off the bat. In my opinion, this was an amazing update, okay, for so many different reasons. It definitely had its flaws, like Chroma Credits, which we'll talk about later on, but I am a big fan of the direction that the game is going, and like the Brawl Stars team, nobody was asking for the removal of Brawl boxes, right? Like, was anybody asking for that? I don't know who was asking for it, but somehow they decided to do something that is amazing for free-to-play players, and this is a big, awesome update. And if you think that this update sucked for any reason, well, we're gonna go through everybody's concerns, and actually I think that a lot of people's concerns are very valid. Like, if you're feeling like you didn't like something in this update, you're probably right, but I highly recommend watching this video with an open mind. I don't even agree with every decision that Supercell made in this update, but overall, I think this update was a huge win, both for free-to-play players and for paying players alike. But we've got to talk about something that's a little messy. There was an issue with the progression system, and I mentioned that I had to go and calculate a bunch of numbers at the start of this video. That was because I kept running into this issue. No matter how I looked at the numbers, things did not add up. It turned out that PowerPoint progression actually got nerfed. And I had told you guys that PowerPoints had actually been the same in my update content. So like I said, I had to figure things out. The gold buff that we also had in order to make up for having to buy gadgets and star powers also was not as much as Supercell was telling me. I was very confused, okay? I took my concerns to the Brawl Stars team. I showed them all the numbers that I was getting, and I am very happy to announce that they took my concerns very seriously. We compared numbers, and after looking at things, they agreed, you know what, you're right, something is missing here. So they went and did some research, found out where the issue was, and I'm really proud to say that they did not hesitate at all to make things right. Within a few hours, they decided to buff PowerPoints by 15%, buff gold by another 9%, add buffs to credits by 12% in the free side of the Brawl Pass, and they're also increasing the PowerPoints at the end of the Brawl Brawl Pass by 5% and buffing power points by 7% in the paid pass. You can actually go and see these notes in the game section right here, and it shows all of these numbers and stuff like that. Now, all those changes are going to take effect in the Candyland Brawl Pass and in all future Brawl Passes. It didn't take effect into the Ghost Station, which I think is actually fine because most players had already progressed mostly through the Ghost Station in the first place because we kind of entered into it like halfway through the update, like, you know, so I think this is really fantastic. And this is one of the reasons why I really love the Brawl Stars team. It would have been so easy for them to ignore everyone's concerns and move forward with progression just being nerfed, even after figuring out where the issue was. After all, this was probably the most popular update of the whole year, possibly in the last 2 years. According to a tweet sent out by Frank, more than 10 million players have returned to Brawl Stars in December, which is actually, that's insane. That is really crazy. And I'm actually seeing the results of that on my YouTube channel. I'm like, you know, for the past year, since Gears, I've been seeing it go down. Right now, I am seeing it go up, and I am so excited about that. And honestly, if they wanted to sneak a progression nerf into like an update, this update would have been the update to do so. Instead, they very seriously considered that there was some sort of an issue, quickly found that issue, and put more resources back into the Brawl Pass to make up for it. Now, for those of you guys who are curious about how progression compares before and after, let me break it down for you. With these buffs taken into consideration, PowerPoint progression will essentially be the same as it was before this update. So no loss in PowerPoint progression, and we're getting a significant buff in gold to make up for the fact that we have to now buy gadgets and star powers. It doesn't completely make up for gadgets and star powers if you were one to never buy them from the shop and you always made sure that you got all of your gadgets and your star powers from Brawl boxes, but it is close enough in my opinion, and I'll explain why later on. Overall though, I am very happy with how progression is changing. In fact, I wanted to address some of the biggest misconceptions that I saw a lot of players making with this update. The number one misconception that I saw is people thinking that it is going to take the average free-to-play player longer to max out their account after the update. After all, I calculated that it would take about 7 years for a very active free-to-play player to completely max out their account after this update. And with the buffs being added into the game that I mentioned earlier, it's actually closer to 6.5 years. And that sounds like an absurd amount of time. And you're right, but guess what? Before the update, it took about 6.5 years for an active free-to-play player to completely max out their account. So like, believe me, I have done the math. It's almost exactly the same amount of time. Now that Brawl Stars buff power points and gold rates, we didn't lose any progression at all. In fact, the 20% buff for gold, in order to make up for the fact that now you have to buy gadgets and star powers, was on top of the 90% buff to gold that they did in the previous update when they removed scrap and gear tokens and replaced it with gold. People thought it was faster for you to upgrade and max out your account because all of the resources were hidden behind Brawl Box RNG. And now that it's clearly laid out for players, some people have thought that the new system is worse than the old one. The truth is though, for most players, the time to max out is almost exactly the same. Oh, also, if you are worried about that 6.5 years, that 6.5 years is if you are not playing club games or you're not playing Club League or anything like that. That is how you get ahead, okay? At the rate that Brawl Stars is releasing new brawlers, like theoretically, free-to-play players will not max out their accounts, but the way that you get ahead is through Club League. You will get faster progression through Club League as long as you're in a somewhat active club. You don't even have to be the highest percentage, the highest ranking league or anything like that. But anyway, it's no different than before the update. This is exactly true before the update as well. Now, the second misconception that I've seen is that the 20% total gold buff was not enough to make up for gadgets and star powers no longer being free in boxes. This has a little bit of validity to it. This is both true and false depending on what type of player you are. If you followed my advice and you never bought a gadget or star power from the shop with gold ever, then yeah, you're absolutely right. You do have a right to complain because despite the gold buff, it will take longer for you to max out. Not by much, not as much as people are making it seem like. Like I said, the 20% gold buff is on top of the 90% gold buff that we had in the previous update. So it's actually not as bad as you might think. In fact, I was calculating that they'd only need about a 38% gold buff if you are a player that never spent any gold on gadgets or star powers, and you always got it from boxes, okay? So for those types of players, yeah, it's a little unfortunate. I do still think that it's fine, but we're actually getting way more gold to upgrade our brawlers than ever before, and I would argue that this new system is much better for most players, because most players would buy specific gadgets and star powers from the shop before this update, because you couldn't rely on boxes to give you the gadget or the star power that you wanted. And sometimes you'd get one and you're like, oh great, thanks for giving me the one that is useless when I wanted it on this brawler instead, or I wanted the other one, right? In fact, it will take less time for you to max out your brawlers, because now you can actually ignore gadgets and star powers that aren't good or that you will not use. If you are a completionist, yes, it will take more time. I'm just gonna be honest and open and fair with you guys. But now that players can choose which gadget and star power to get for every brawler, I think the new system is way better for most players. My one piece of feedback to Supercell now though is, please, when new brawlers are actually released, please allow us to get both gadgets and both star powers right from the get-go, so the players don't have to feel like they have to wait before the specific ability is out. Like, that would be my one thing that I would really appreciate. So anyway, that's why I think the 20% gold buff is enough. Also, I just want to point out, okay, in the previous update, Supercell gave us 63% bonus gold when they converted scrap and gear tokens into gold, okay? So if you are a past player, which is like 95% of my current audience, you already have a very significant bonus over new players. And so I hate to say that you don't have a right to complain, because you absolutely do. And I really feel like your feelings are justified, but at the same time, you're already way ahead, okay? And if you're a new player, the new system is already better for you. So overall, I'm very happy with the gold economy with the game right now. With that said though, you know, I hate for me to be like, okay, I'm very happy with it, but I'm gonna still suggest a change. But I do have a couple ideas that I think that the people would really appreciate you Supercell doing. The first is if they made the first gadget and the first star power on every brawler discounted by 50%. I know that sounds like a lot, but by my calculations, that would actually still be worse than if they had just buffed gold by the 40% that I thought they would need to, or the 38%. But it would allow players to get their brawlers to a competitive level without drastically reducing the cost to completely max out a total account. The other thing, and this is kind of speculative, Supercell mentioned way back in one of the Brawl talks that they are planning on releasing some sort of a feature that might have like a mastery feature or something like that. We don't know what the details are behind that, but what if they made it so that you could get a discount on gadgets and star powers for brawlers once you reach that mastery level on that specific brawler? I don't know, I feel like that's really cool. That would definitely incentivize players to like push their brawlers, and like, hey, if you play a brawler for a really long time, or you push them really high in trophies, or you reach this level, then like, hey, all of a sudden it's cheaper for you to max out your account. That's really cool. I think that would be an awesome feature in the future. But anyway, let me know in the comment section below. The third misconception that I've seen is that the Starr Road, or the new way of unlocking new brawlers, is actually worse for new players. I understand these concerns, I'll address them, but in my opinion, the Starr Road is way better for new players. Yes, it is true that other than legendary brawlers, all of the other brawlers will take longer to unlock now than they would have before this update. And I know that this might sound like a little bit of a hot take, but I actually think this is a positive thing for two big reasons. First of all, a lot of people watching this video are probably people that have been playing for a very long time, maybe even clear back since when the Brawl Pass was first put into the game. Well, Brawl Stars has way more brawlers in the game than back then. When the Brawl Pass was first added into the game, we had a whopping 27 brawlers. We are more than double that now at 64 brawlers once Mandy comes out. That is incredibly overwhelming for a new player. Can you imagine logging into a game and seeing 64 brawlers or characters and like having to choose which one? The thing is new players would come in, and there are so many different, you know, rare, super rare, and even epic brawlers, especially when you consider all the chromatics, that the new players would unlock so many new brawlers, and it was so overwhelming. They didn't know where to put their resources into, and guess what? You didn't even get to choose where your resources got, because you would have random power points randomly be assigned to all your brawlers. So like, good luck getting a brawler to power 9 with a gadget and star power. It was just never gonna happen, because you were literally unlocking brawlers too fast. And every time a new brawler was released, it got worse and worse. Plus, the low trophy area, or the meta or whatever, matchmaking, was terrible for newer players, because people would unlock this new brawlers that already have the resources to upgrade them and unlock them to really high levels. So all of a sudden you have these new players that are facing off against people with a freaking power 11 Jester or Chester, right? Or whatever, the newest legendary brawler. And like, it felt incredibly unfair for new players. And so new players need a way to compete. And by ensuring that new players are unlocking slower and the fact that they can choose which brawlers to upgrade, now new players will have the resources to get their brawlers to competitive levels. And that is amazing. Also, I don't think unlocking new brawlers is as slow as you guys might think for new players. I don't want to spoil things for you guys too much, but I recently started a free-to-play account for a new video series that I'm working on. By the end of day one of playing this account, I had 9 brawlers and I had 1 brawler at power 8 with a gadget on day 1. And I have more than double that on day 10, right? Like, I've got so many different brawlers. Also, let's not forget the fact that legendary brawlers are way easier to unlock after the update than they were before. When brawl boxes were in the game, the average player had 0.9 legendary brawlers by 1 year of playing. Now it takes them just over 2 months for an active free-to-play player to unlock legendary. Also, your first legendary is 50% faster to unlock, okay? Like, that's an awesome feature. Plus, players have the ability to choose which brawler they get to unlock, which is just amazing. Like, there are bullet point after bullet point after bullet point. In my opinion, the Starr Road is leaps and bounds better for new players, specifically when it comes to unlocking new brawlers. It's just so much better. The fourth misconception that I've seen is that Brawl Stars only got rid of brawl boxes because they're getting external pressure due to lawmakers banning loot boxes in Europe. After all, I think there's a lot of really good lawmakers out there who are looking to pass restrictions on loot boxes and gamblings in games. And that, like, I support that. Like, I think that's fantastic. I really do. But I don't think that there's anyone specifically looking at Brawl Stars and saying that's our #1 problem. That game right there, Brawl Stars are so predatory. They've got to change now. Nobody in their right mind was looking at Brawl Stars specifically and saying that Brawl Stars was predatory. They're looking at games that are blatantly using predatory tactics to try and milk their audience for as much money as possible. Even with brawl boxes, Brawl Stars was already one of the most free-to-play friendly games on mobile, at least when it comes to really popular ones, and it was by far the most free-to-play friendly game at Supercell. I'm sure that Brawl Stars team is aware that loot box laws are going into effect sometime probably over the next 5 years, and maybe that even did affect their decision to remove loot boxes to some extent. But if legislation was their main concern, I think we'd be seeing Clash Royale removing loot boxes from their game. Clash Mini never would have added their fun boxes or their loot boxes into the game, and you know, maybe we will see those things being removed. But I honestly think that the new system is just better for the game. I don't actually think that the new system will be better for them financially, at least not immediately. After all, anyone in game design knows that loot boxes makes money. But I think the new system is way more engaging for players because unless you have a maxed out account, you always have a very clear goal to work towards. And arguably, even if you do have a maxed out account, you're always working towards that next fame rank so that you can flex that on other people, right? Also, I think that this will just keep people playing the game for longer, which will eventually lead to possibly more revenue for the game. But I think this was a risk for Brawl Stars, and props to them for taking that risk and making the game a little bit more friendly for younger audiences, free-to-play audiences, or for those people who are susceptible to those predatory tactics. And I think this has immediately made the game more fun, and like there's more of a reason to push and play and like get that next brawler. It's way more fun and exciting. And personally, playing on my new free-to-play account, like it's been some of the most fun I've had playing Brawl Stars ever. Like, and I'm genuinely excited to play every single day, and that is really saying something when you consider the fact that, guess what, I already have a maxed out account with all the gears, all the star powers, all the gadgets on every single brawler, and I've played this game for thousands of hours, right? Like the game's progression system, it feels more fun. I love the whole concept of working towards that goal. I think it's awesome. It gives a lot more power to the players, and I'm honestly really proud to be a part of the game's history. Also, there's a lot of other things I really like about the Starr Road. All brawlers can be bought with gems, so if you really want to buy a brawler, then you can choose which one to get rather than having to spend thousands of dollars for a chance to get the brawler that you wanted. I also like that you can switch your brawler unlock decision at any time, even once you've unlocked it. Like once it happens and like before you hit that let's go button, you can actually swap to the other choices. That's awesome. I also really like that you can switch your choice to the newest brawler so that you don't have to wait to unlock the newest and most exciting content that's brand new, right? Starr Road, big big thumbs up from me. Now, the fifth misconception that I've seen is that we need some sort of a bank for credits so that we can save credits for future Brawler releases. After all, we can now save power points and gold, right? I think this comes from a lot of the people who want to open their end of season rewards for the power points and the gold, but they don't want the credits to go toward their fame. And I understand why people want that, but the current system is actually no different than the update, right? Before the update, if you wanted golden power points, what did you have to do? You had to open up Brawl boxes, right? But if you wanted the best chance at unlocking a Brawler as soon as it was released, guess what? You had to save your Brawl boxes for when the new Brawler came out. This system is exactly the same as it was before, and in some ways it's actually better, because throughout the Brawl Pass, credits are completely split from golden power points. It's not split at the end of the Brawl Pass, but that's exactly how big boxes worked before. So like, we have more freedom in how we actually unlock our resources now if you want to save your rewards for new Brawlers. I will admit that it does suck that we can only store the rewards from one previous Brawl Pass instead of two, but you can still store enough credits from the previous season to unlock every rarity of the Brawlers except for the legendaries. But a legendary wasn't guaranteed with Brawl boxes either, right? I have opened up 500 plus boxes plenty of times before and still not gotten the newest legendary Brawler. I mean, at least this system at least guarantees progress towards legendary. And if you use the previous season and the new season, then you can unlock legendaries. Also, I think that a credit bank of any sort is just not a good idea for the game, because if max players could store a ton of credits every single time a new Brawler is released, that Brawler would flood low trophy matches that day that it is released. And like that, I mean, like, it may be fun to experience every now and then, but I honestly think that it's just unhealthy for the game. The sixth misconception that I've seen is that fame is useless and stupid. Look, I get it. Many players don't care about flexing their fame levels. In that sense, yeah, fame is kind of useless, right? But fame is way better than getting nothing from opening boxes when you already have every Brawler unlocked, which before the update, that is exactly what you got. If you had every single Brawler unlocked and you just needed those power points and those that gold in order for you to upgrade your Brawlers, but you already had every Brawler in the game, you didn't get anything from the boxes except for exactly that. No way to prove the fact that you've been playing the game for years. No way to prove that you had a nearly maxed out account for pretty much the whole time. So yeah, as a long-term player who unlocks the new Brawlers pretty much the day after the update drops, I'm a huge fan of fame. There's finally reason for me to want to play my quests every day and complete them, even though fame is hardly shown anywhere right now. And it's not, but they did say that they have plans in adding it to other places in the future. So like, I'm really excited. Like, can you imagine if you get into a match with somebody and all of a sudden, oh, everybody in that match can see that you've got like rank Saturn, and they're all like, oh my gosh, that guy, he's been playing for a long time. Like, please, this is gonna matter someday in the future. Mark my words. Okay, I've cleared up a lot of misconceptions and I still have a lot more thoughts about this update before I can start ranking it. Let's talk about the issues with Chroma Credits and Chromatic Brawlers and why I think that that system does need to be improved. Before the update, a free-to-play player who has most Brawlers unlocked could have the latest Chromatic Brawler one season after they were released pretty consistently, like most of the time. All they had to do is save their gems to buy every other Brawl Pass, and that would be enough for them to get every other chromatic for free. On top of that, if they were smart, they would then save all their boxes for the chromatic Brawler that they were missing once it had been out for more than one season. And then of course their drop rate would actually drop down to mythic, because if they saved up all their boxes, they would essentially have enough to basically guarantee that they would get that Brawler. There was a very slim chance that they wouldn't, but you could pretty much count on getting it most of the time because you're basically looking at boxes from 2 seasons at that point. After the update, the same free-to-play player who is actively playing and storing their resources to the best of their ability can no longer get it after just waiting 1 season. They have to wait 2 seasons after they are released so that they can drop to costing only 500 Chroma Credits, because mythic rarity chromatics cost 1,500 Chroma Credits, which is 3 times as expensive, right? Now, this issue was brought up to Frank on Twitter, and he basically responded by saying that free-to-play players shouldn't expect to be able to have access to premium content immediately. And I fully understand why people are upset about that, but I actually agree with Frank on this. Also, I think that people were a lot more upset about it than they needed to be, because it actually isn't quite as bad as you might think, or as bad as I've even said so far into this video, because we are getting a decent amount of Chroma credits from the daily freebies and from other sources. It's not quite as good as it was before the update. Like, you're not going to be able to unlock those chromatic brawlers as much as the previous update, but it's really not as bad as people are making it out either. Like, if you have a good whole look at the whole progression system as a whole, it's not a bad. Either way though, I'm on the people's side, right? And I'm also kind of on Frank's side. I don't think that all players should expect to get immediate access to premium content, but I think that if a free-to-play player is actively playing enough to buy every other Brawl Pass with gems, they should also be getting enough Chroma credits to unlock every other chromatic brawler after it drops to a mythic rarity chromatic. Not immediately once it's out, like a legendary, but mythic. I think that that is fair. Waiting 2 months is plenty of time for free-to-play players to have to wait for the latest chromatic, in my opinion. That's about the amount of time that players who were smart with their resources had to wait before the update. But now, after the update, the wait time is closer to 4 months, which I think that that's unreasonably long, especially when you consider the fact that it's twice as long as it was before. Now, to be fair, you do actually get a fair amount of Chroma credits from daily freebies. In fact, you get 50 of them for the jackpot amount, which will happen once a month as long as you log in every single day. So it's not quite as long as 3 months, but it's still not as consistent as it was before. And that's why I think that the cost to unlock a mythic rarity chromatic and a legendary rarity chromatic should be decreased considerably. Personally, I think that mythic rarity chromatic should have their cost dropped from 1,500 Chroma credits down to 1,000 Chroma credits. This is how many Chroma credits you get for 2 seasons of the free side of the Brawl Pass. This way, if you get every other chromatic from saving your gems to buy the Brawl Pass, like you should be doing as free-to-play players, you would then be able to unlock every other chromatic the season after they're released, as long as you were active enough to unlock all the Chroma credits from the Brawl Pass every single season. I think that's reasonable. I think that's fair. Hey, you wait 2 months, you save all your resources exactly how you should be, then yes, free-to-play players, here you go. Yes, you can have every chromatic brawler within 2 months of them being released. That sounds great. And if Supercell even wants to take it another step further, they don't want to quite bring it down to 1,000 Chroma credits, and they want to consider the freebies from Chroma credits into account, then I think 1,200 Chroma credits for the previous season's chromatic brawler would also be fair. The active free-to-play player would still be able to unlock every chromatic brawler exactly how I explained it earlier, with the one exception that they would now also have to make sure that they log in every single day so they do not miss the freebie Chroma credit jackpot. I think that's a lot for players, for Brawl Stars to say, hey, yeah, you know what, you can do it, but you have to log in every single day. But you know what, at the same time, it would also reward the most active free-to-play players who are playing every single day. And I think that that is awesome. Like, 2 month wait, boom, here you go, every single chromatic brawler. I think that's fair and considerate from Brawl Stars, and I also think that that feels good from a player perspective. As for the current season's chromatic brawler, the legendary rate of the chromatic brawlers, their price is way too high, and it needs to be drastically reduced. 9 seasons, 4,500 Chroma credits to unlock the current brawler? 9 seasons? That's a year and a half. Are you kidding me? Nobody's going to save credits for a year and a half and then spend it on the current season. Like, that's just insane. Like, when I take a look at a game and I look at the values that they have, all the costs, like, everything has to make sense to a certain extent for a specific type of player, and that's too high. Like, it's just inconceivable that anybody would spend 4,500 Chroma credits on a brawler. I think decreasing it down to 2,500 Chroma credits is way more reasonable. It's still way too high to justify spending your credits on for most players, but it's not entirely inconceivable for some players who buy most Brawl Passes and save their Chroma credits from like 4 seasons and make sure that they log in every single day so they never miss that jackpot. Like that's what it takes. So yeah, that's ridiculous. With all that said though, I know I'm talking all this negative here. I think that the new system for unlocking chromatic brawlers is actually amazing for new players. And I even think it's really great for the average player who still has several chromatic brawlers to unlock, right? For most players, it's really great. We're literally talking about like maybe 3% of players, maybe 5% of players who fall into this situation. But it is important that for those 5 players, the people who are at the tippiest, toppest, the most active and dedicated to the game, it is very important that they feel the system is good and that it feels fair. And so that's why I feel like it's really important for them to make these change. And I think that that's fair for Supercell to do so. So I'm hoping that they'll be willing to make some of these adjustments. The other thing they could do is they could just buff the amount of Chroma credits that we get from the free pass, or even put some in the paid pass. Honestly, I'd be fine with that because, you know, free-to-play players, they should be spending some of their gems on the Brawl pass anyway. Now, one other issue with this update was a bug. Oh man, bugs. It allowed players to recollect Trophy Road rewards and immediately unlock Chester as soon as the update lands, and in some cases even get super high fame ranks that are higher than mine is. That sucked. That really sucked. I really wish that didn't happen, because in my opinion, players shouldn't have been able to recollect their rewards from the Trophy Road. You already collect the resources once, and it might look like the rewards are different because they've changed, but they're actually not different. They're basically the same. We're getting the same amount of golden power points from before and after. It just looks different. But yeah, so it really sucks that happened. But bugs happen, mistakes happen, people are people. We can't get things right every single time. And honestly, I think the Supercell did a really great job at handling the bug quickly, and it did lead to giving compensation rewards to players who didn't even get the bug before it was patched. I know it was upsetting to a lot of people. I really understand why. It was upsetting to me, but I really believe in forgiving developers when they make mistakes that are clearly mistakes and that they are handled well. And so, like, honestly, the bugs didn't even negatively affect my overall rating of this update anyway, because it's just a mistake. I make mistakes all the time. In fact, I can almost guarantee you there are comments in this video already of timestamps where I said something that was clearly a mistake, because it happens every video. If anything, I appreciate the way that Supercell handled it, because not a lot of developers would have handled the situation so graciously. Oh, we talked about a lot, and I still have some rapid fire opinions before I rate this update. So let's talk about the new brawlers. I think it is... It's so funny that Supercell would take an update where they remove RNG from loot boxes and they completely get rid of it, and they're just like, yeah, we're not doing RNG anymore. And then they release an RNG based brawler like Chester. They must have planned for it. It's just too comical not to be, right? I really like Chester a lot, but I also really hate Chester. For the first time ever, I actually want Supercell to nerf the newest brawler so much that he is not viable in competitive esports. And yeah, I think that a lot of the pro players will agree with me on this. I'm not saying I'm a pro player, but a lot of competitive players will agree. I do not like the idea of RNG or randomness playing a role in esports. I am fine with it being in the game. Like, I really like Chester. I don't want them to get rid of him. I think he's fantastic. He's really fun. I think that if Supercell can nerf him so that the pro players don't want to play him, or it's very obvious they're playing a risk when they play him, but that he's still fun for everybody else to play, I think that would be the perfect spot for him. If they can do that, I would give him a big, huge thumbs up, because that sounds really hard to do, and but I think it's really important that they do that. And also right now, he's a little bit too strong. I think he needs some nerfs in order to reach that point. As for Gray, dude, Supercell gave players a quest to unlock him for free. Literally everybody could do that day one if you just played for like a couple of hours. In fact, I think it was even less than a couple hours. I think that's fantastic. Supercell giving us free brawlers is so fun, and like traditionally they've done it like maybe every now and then, but not very frequently, and certainly not to the magnitude that they did in this update where we got 3 new brawlers, right? Now, I predicted a while ago that we'd be getting a teleport brawler a couple of years ago actually, and I really like how he works. He does need some tweaking. He feels a little bit weird. His portal's a little bit strange for his teammates, I think, but I think he's a great addition to the game. But then we have Mandy. Like I said, 3 brawlers in one update. That's actually insane. That's a lot of brawlers for a new update. And honestly, I don't even know what to say about Mandy. Like, okay, well, I do. I really like her personality a lot, but I am not convinced that her mechanic of standing still to increase her range is like super great. I think it's gonna need some tweaking. It feels weird. I haven't played it against real players, but it does feel weird. But she's not even released yet, so I'll have more thoughts on her later. Either way though, I love the new environment. I am a big fan of the new skins, especially Frost Queen Amber. That skin, oh my gosh, it is very cool. I'm sorry guys. I'm sorry. Another thing I don't see people talking about nearly enough is the fact that Supercell completely reworked the progression system, and then they gave players who bought the Brawl Pass double rewards basically for the credits, plus they gave them an extra 80 gems. One of those two things I feel like would have been enough, but both of them, such a great move by Supercell. I really think they went above and beyond to make sure that like the people that did spend the money on the Brawl Pass felt rewarded for doing that, or people that have been saving up their gems for a long time. I think that's awesome. Also, I really like that the Trophy Road brawlers were taken off of the Trophy Road and were put into different rarities. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but at every trophy mark where you would have gotten a Trophy Road brawler before, you're now given a fat stack of credits to unlock the current brawler you're working on, right? I've experienced it firsthand on my free-to-play account, and it feels amazing. It gives you a real sense of like, oh, I know I want to unlock this brawler because I chose to unlock this brawler, and then I'm going to grind out the trophies to get those credits so I can unlock the brawler. It feels really good, and those first 10,000 trophies feel very rewarding, and that's awesome. That's plenty to get new players into the game. I have mentioned a lot of things in this video that Supercell could have done better. I've even specifically brought up things that they didn't do very well, but then they corrected. This was a big update with absolutely massive changes, and most of all, I'm just impressed with how much they got right, especially for such a big change to the game. And with that, it is time for me to rate this update. 1 is a terrible update where I think they got everything wrong. 10 is an amazing update where I think they got everything right. 5 is right in the middle. It's neutral or equal good with equal bad. I don't think this was a perfect update, but it was dang close. I have thought about this a lot, and I feel confident in my score of 9.5 out of 10. Especially when you consider the fact that Supercell was quick to add more PowerPoints and gold when I realized that the numbers were off. And honestly, the only thing keeping me from giving this update a 10 is the fact that chromatics at mythic and legendary rates cost a bit too much. Well, okay, legendaries are way too much. Mythics are a bit too much. And unlocking them is slightly worse than it was before the update for maybe 5% of players. I don't know. The players that have most brawlers unlocked. Overall, though, this was an absolutely massive win of an update. And honestly, I think it took a lot of courage for the Brawl Stars team to make such a big change. I am very much on board with the direction of the game, and I'm actually really excited to see where Brawl Stars is going in the future. I know I addressed a lot of people's misconceptions that I heard people make about this update, but I think that most players are also feeling very excited about this update. But I really want to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comment section below, and make sure you guys subscribe, especially if you want to check out my free-to-play series, which I'm really excited about. You can also check out my other content right here. And for now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars.